Aloha! My name is V. Gutierrez. I will be representing an embezzlement case with my team, including Aleiyah Kalama-Ohelo, Liane Wen, Simon Barlow, and Ikaika Pua. We will cover a fraud case conducted by Amit Patel, who is a former employee of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Patel leveraged his position as an administrator of the team's virtual credit card program to commit wire fraud and illegal monetary transactions between September 2019 to February 2023. During this period of time, Patel made hundreds of purchases and transactions with no legitimate business purpose, totaling to an approximate of $22 million. He used some of the stolen funds to feed his lavish lifestyle and a gambling addiction. The Jaguars eventually fired Patel in February of 2023. After internal and external investigations, Patel pleaded guilty to 6 counts of state grand theft. In March 2024, Patel was sentenced to 6 years and 6 months in prison. On top of that, he was also ordered to pay full restitution in the amount of $22,221,454.40 to his former employer, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
So now we're going to talk about why Amit Patel embezzled over $22 million from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's kind of 3 main reasons why someone would embezzle this much money or even a little amount of money. And it really boils down to opportunity. What was their opportunity like? The rationalization was how could they make up for this? And then pressure. So what was pressuring them to do this? So for opportunity, he had too many roles in his job, and there wasn't anyone looking over what he was doing, right? Because there wasn't enough internal controls. If there was more internal controls, then he wouldn't have the opportunity to steal this much money because he would have gotten caught if people were overlooking it. So the rationalization, this doesn't really fit into it. That's why there's a big X on it, because there's no rational reason anyone should be stealing $22 million from a company that you work for. And then pressure. So Amit Patel, he was a gambling addict. He had a gambling addiction, a gambling problem, and he had pressure to fuel his addiction. So he felt pressured. I guess I don't know what he felt, but if I was a gambling addict and I had the opportunity to steal $22 million, I would kind of feel pressured to fuel my addiction and steal money. So pressure kind of, but mainly opportunity. And our next slide was, how was the fraud conducted? So he had authority to create, approve, and process transactions, which he really only should have been allowed to do one of those things, authority for one of those things. And then someone else in the organization should have overlooked what he was doing. Another accountant should have overlooked what he was doing. And then he handled the monthly financial reports and created VCC transactions not related to the team. So VCC stands for virtual credit card transactions. So he was spending money on random stuff not related to the team's usage. He should have been buying Gatorade for the team or stuff like that, stuff for the team, not his personal life, not groceries or anything. So what did he spend all this money on? So over on the right, we have the used stolen funds for online gambling. He was an online gambler, gambling addict, went to casinos too. Luxury vacations, vehicles, real estate, so houses, cars, and plenty of other stuff that no one knows, but you can kind of just guess, like, what would you do with $22 million? I mean, what it really boils down to is that none of this would have happened if there was proper internal controls. If there was proper internal controls, if there was someone else, even one other person going over what he was doing that wasn't in on his little fraud scheme, this wouldn't have happened, and the Jacksonville Jaguars would have saved $22 million.
Okay, so I will be going over methods used to conduct fraud and how the fraud was concealed. So we know that Patel exploited his job role by using his authority to create, approve, and process transactions, but let's talk a little more about his methods to conduct fraud. We have identified 4 different ways in which Patel was able to commit fraudulence. First being duplication, which needs no explanation. Second, falsification, where Patel created false transactions that seem like reasonable purchases. Third, inflation, where he increased purchase amounts to then pocket the difference. And fourth, manipulation, where he delayed legitimate charges to make room for his own personal transactions. So, how was the fraud concealed? The fraud was concealed because of false documentation, omission, hiding the fake with the real, and weak controls. For a while, Patel was able to slide under the radar by creating fake files and emails to accounting departments with false entries, matching his own personal transactions to actual payments the team made, covering up legit team charges with his own, and while doing this, he was working around the system's weak internal controls.
So, what were the internal controls that was violated? The first internal control that was violated was the establishment of responsibilities. Amit Patel had way too much responsibilities on his end. Not only did he have to manage the VCC program, he also had to prepare monthly financial reports, which this allowed him to initiate transactions and report on them. The second internal control that was violated was the divided responsibility for related transactions. He had to control authorization and reporting for these VCC purchases, and no approval was required prior to submission. The third internal control that was violated was the application of technological controls. The VCC system lacked automated alerts, and no flagging was done by the computer devices, which this is one of the reasons how Amit Patel can make all these purchases and have it pass by. The fourth internal control that was violated was the maintenance of adequate records. He created false accounting files, altered the description of them, and inflated legitimate charges made by the team. The next internal control violated was performing regular and independent reviews. The company, the Jaguars, failed to conduct timely independent audits and showed lack of independent oversight, which is also why Amit Patel can make all these purchases. The last internal control that was violated was the separation of record keeping from custody of assets. Amit Patel had custody assets to the funds, as well as he had record keeping responsibilities for these financial reports, and this allowed him to create fake transactions and falsify accounting records.
Lastly, we're going to be talking about how the Jaguars could have prevented this fraud from happening in the first place. And what I have in front of you guys are 3 very low-cost preventative measures that I believe they should have already had in the first place. Like, this is basic accounting stuff, security stuff. And the first one is a separation of duties. Mr. Patel just had so much power in this credit card reimbursement system to where he could create, approve, and reconcile transactions all on his own, unchecked. And if they had separated that duty between 3 people, at least 3 people, where one person is creating transactions, one person is approving, and one person is reconciling, then that would have decreased the opportunity for fraud by a lot. Because that's why he had been able to do the fraud, because he had the opportunity to do it. And secondly, they could have created alerts and require monthly sign-offs. So this refers more to the technological side of accounting security, where if they had an alert system in place, then Mr. Patel's transactions after hours would have been detected, and there would have at least been an investigation, because Mr. Patel did have some transactions that happened late in the night or after hours. and review monthly expense summaries. So basically, if Mr. Patel had a manager, someone above him that he had to send his monthly expense summaries to, that someone that could sign off on all of his actions for the month, that could connect the numbers, make sure there's no fraud being involved, and that would have also decreased the opportunity for him to commit the fraud. And lastly, enforce rotation and transparency. Just have finance staff do peer checks. Make sure that people are checking each other so that there is a very low chance that someone would even want to commit fraud. And also just have high value transactions be reviewed by the executive, which is a very no-brainer one. I mean, if you're going to be sending millions of dollars to someone, you want that to be without fraud. Yeah. And as for things they could do in the future, just basic stuff like training, fraud awareness, making sure that people know of the consequences in order for them to not do it. And yeah, those are 3 very low-cost, basic preventative measures that the Jacksonville Jaguars could have done in order to prevent this fraud from even happening. I mean, especially when you consider how big their organization is. They're not some brick and mortar store across the street. This is an NFL team, a National Football League organization. So they definitely had the means to have these implemented. They just didn't have it for some reason. And yeah, that was our presentation. And this is our works cited page. So thank you guys for listening. If you guys have any questions, just feel free to shoot any of the team members an email, including me. And yeah, thank you.